My name is Geraldo. I worked for 6 years in this Ford factory here. At the end of last year, or to be more precise, on December the 22nd, I was laid off. They sent a letter to my house. That was my Christmas present.
Foi presente de Natal que eu recebi.
You ask me any questions that you want me to find out the answers to, and then I'm going to go out basically and do the research and report back to you, okay?
Esta é a minha casa.
This is my house. I've been paying rent for 4 years. Now, I have to start borrowing money. If I don't get my job back, things will be very hard. This is Mateus, Ivy, and my wife.
My name is Divina.
I'd really like to know why I lost my job. I wish I could get an answer because I still have no idea.
Não sei motivo.
Globalization is affecting the lives of millions around the world. Geraldo da Souza was one of 2,000 car workers laid off in Sao Paulo, Brazil, because of economic events elsewhere in the world. To find out why Geraldo is out of work, we asked TV reporter John Alpert to investigate and report back using all the tools of modern technology.
I have to start out with a confession. I don't know a lot about the economy. So why in the world did they ask me to work on this program? I've been fired from lots of jobs, I mean more than you can even imagine. And I've won lots of prizes for investigative reporting. Oh, how convenient, my awards are down here. So I'm going to go work for Geraldo. I'm going to go places that he can't go. I'm going to talk to people that he can't talk to. We're going to stay in touch, and together we're going to try and figure out what in the world happened to him. What we have here today is we have an internet hookup with Geraldo. What I'd like to report to you today is that I have had absolutely no success in getting anybody from the Ford company to talk to me. So I'm real sorry.
Well, tell him we're still fighting Ford over here, and I'm sure he's doing his best over there.
Okay, so Geraldo, we're all saying goodbye to you, and I'll be in communication with you in the next couple of days. We'll have another internet link like this, and I'll try and tell you more of the information we've been able to discover.
Hello, my name is Miguel Jorge. I'm the Vice President from Volkswagen Brazil.
Geraldo wants to know how international forces affect the automobile industry.
When you have a crisis like in Russia, all the investments in Brazil, all the money, foreign money that was in Brazil, was very afraid what could happen to Brazil. Then this money flew out from Brazil.
And so how did that affect somebody like Geraldo?
Then when this money went out, the Brazilian government put very high the interest rate. What happened? People could not buy the car. When people could not buy the car, the production was very small. When the production is small, people like Geraldo will suffer because they don't have work.
So, which part of the economy is making money right now? If you guys have difficulty, Geraldo wants to know who's making the money.
Yeah, the banks are making the money.
The banks?
The banks, yes. In every place, every time, the banks make money. We are doing cars. You can touch the car. You can drive the car. In the bank, what you can touch, what are they producing? But they are earning the money.
How did you save these workers' jobs?
In Volkswagen, you have a special program. We did an agreement with the unions. We didn't fire any people, but we reduced the income from the labor force, and we reduced our time. We are working only 4 days a week in 3 weeks. In the first week, we work 5 days a week. With this, we reduce 15% of the salaries, and we reduce 15% of the labor.
So if Geraldo was working here, he'd still have a job.
He still have a job.
Any news from Ford about getting your job back?
The information I had was that they had a meeting, but nothing was resolved. Bye, Mateus. Give Dad a kiss. Bye. Bye-bye.
Press the video call button. Doop. Enter the number. Doop. And I predict that in a few short seconds, we will be seeing Geraldo waiting to speak to us. And
Tudo bem.
Okay.
Oh, everything okay?
Ok.
Okay.
Ok. Tudo.
Great.
Tudo.
Okay, well, what we can do today is that we can talk about the report that we've been working on. I can give you an update. I can even play for you some tapes that we've shot, some of the people that you asked me to go out and talk to. Let's get your reaction. All right, Geraldo, we're here at Sul America. This is one of the largest insurance companies in all of Latin America. And we're going to talk to an economist here, Roberto da Costa.
Geraldo, Brazil has to produce more to export. Let me explain this point, which I think is very important. Brazil is a country that is very small participant in the world trade. We participate in less than 2% in the world trade. Just for your understanding, Mexico, which is half of Brazilian size in terms of gross national product, export 2 times of Brazil. We are living the worst part of the adjustment period. Brazil is a country of transition. You are paying a price for this transition period of Brazil. If I were in your position, first, I would look into opportunities outside of the city of São Paulo, and secondly, outside of the state of São Paulo. And if you are not comfortable with that, please look to opportunities outside of Brazil.
All right, Geraldo, here we are in my capital, Washington, D.C. There's the White House down there. And if you pan around over here, you can see the Washington Monument. It's undergoing repairs, sort of like the Brazilian economy. And if you want to learn about globalization, here in Washington you have institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund that really exert a lot of power over what happens in Brazil.
Geraldo, my name is Sandy McKenzie, and I'm the chief of the Atlantic Division of the Western Hemisphere Department in the International Monetary Fund. And this is the division that deals with Brazil. Brazil's government, and by that I mean all governments combined, taken as a bunch, spend more than they take in.
So how does this affect Geraldo then when he goes to work in Ford?
Countries in such a position are vulnerable to some extent to the whims of international investors. In the fall of 1997, the Asian economies that had been growing very, very rapidly suddenly got themselves in terrible trouble. And investors around the world started to pull their money out of the emerging markets. And Brazil is one of these emerging markets. In fact, it's the very largest in the whole world. Now, what the government had to do at that point to attract investors was raise interest rates sky high. And that meant that loans to people wanting to buy cars were much, much higher. The result was that the automotive industry in Brazil really suffered a terrible decline in demand for its products. Unfortunately, about a year later, the Russian crisis erupted on the world. And again, there was a flight away from emerging markets and a withdrawal of money.
So what actually happened on the other side of the world, in Asia and in Russia, had a direct link to Geraldo's situation?
It had a very direct link to Geraldo's situation. There's no question about it.
Aperta o saque.
Press withdraw.
Isso.
Now, wait.
Agora
Go ahead, Evie.
Saldo total.
I have a negative balance of $160.
Então, quando
Around the 20th of the month, when the money runs out, it gets pretty depressing. You just have to live from day to day.
In the past week, there has been an actual precipitous decline in the value of your money, and it's causing problems for the government. Is there any news about this in the Brazilian papers?
There is. And they are talking about the dollar. The government has to pay its bill in dollars. And in terms of interest payments alone, they amount to over $1 billion. All this affects us in our daily lives, because the government will then raise taxes and increase fuel prices to collect more money to send to the IMF.
Geraldo, you had asked me to find out for you if there were people from other economic classes, not only workers, not only poor people, who might be affected by this economic situation. Specifically, you want to know if there were wealthy people that might be getting hurt by the troubles as well. And we found a gentleman who used to own his own factory. His name is Fabio Bruno.
Pois, Geraldo, eu sei que você também foi entrevistado.
Hello, Geraldo. I know you too were interviewed. I'm here as a boss, but there is no difference between the bosses and the employees. So, come into my house and let me tell you my story. I lost everything. All I have left is my house. And now, I'm going to show you my factory. When I start out, none of this existed. This was just a wooden shack.
I managed the sewing division. My father made the fabric, and I supervised the fabrication of these shirts.
This is an example of our fine fabric. I'm not advertising. There is no use anymore. It's just to show you that I didn't make bad quality clothes. I'm not that type of businessman. The government says the industry didn't modernize. But how? If you wanted to buy a machine, you had to pay an 80% import tax, while in Taiwan they get a 3-year payback period, pay no taxes and receive financing. How do you expect us to survive? We'd have to be able to perform a miracle.
Geraldo, here I am, starting all over. There are two, at 71 years old, they are starting over. So let's hope that our country will recognize our value, both yours and ours. So keep going, be strong.
Brasil, meu Brasil brasileiro, meu malaquitonê. Brasil samba.
Geraldo's search for the reasons why globalization cost him his job sees him back on the streets. It's not the carnival, it's a protest march.
That's a big demonstration.
Hello, John. Here we are. It took us 15 hours to get here. We are demonstrating for our rights as Brazilian citizens. Our right to democracy, to employment, to healthcare and to housing. These are rights and we don't have them here.
You wanted us to find out if there were people who were actually confident of the government, who were doing well because of the government's economic policies, and we found a businessman, Mario Garnero, who actually is quite excited about what's happening in the Brazilian economy and has big, big plans.
If I'd like to go outside, we could go outside.
Well, actually, I'd like to enjoy this office because I've never seen an office like this before in my life. This is really spectacular. Geraldo wakes up one morning, he doesn't have a job, okay? What forces, externally and internally, simply made that situation come about?
Internally, mostly, I think that when you fight inflation, you have a sort of recession. We had a mild recession, bringing down an inflation that was about 2,000% a year to 4% a year.
Mr. Garnero feels so confident that the Brazilian economy is rebounding, he took us on a tour of his latest investments. The biggest and most ambitious is the construction of the world's tallest building. It's down here in downtown Sao Paulo, not too far from your house, Geraldo. And this building is going to be taller than the World Trade Center, and Mr. Garnero said he's going to build it in the shape of a giant pyramid. From high atop the world here, Mr. Garnero likes his view of the future, and he feels pretty confident.
So we'll be creating then around 10,000 direct jobs. I hope to have exactly Geraldo coming in one of them.
He says he's going to be creating 10,000 new jobs and that he has a job for you.
I'm happy to hear that. I hope it's true, and he's not just another one of our country's lying entrepreneurs. If he creates 10,000 new jobs, I'll be very glad, of course, to be one of the people to be hired.
Well, actually, what we discovered in one of our interviews is that the wealth distribution in Brazil is the most inequitable of any country in the world, the difference between what the rich people earn and what the poor people earn. We could actually show you some scenes from a very poor community 5 miles from your house.
Oi, Geraldo.
Hello, Geraldo. My name is José da Silva Rolam. I'm president of the neighborhood union in Parisópolis. We have 60,000 inhabitants in our community. Devaluation of our money also affects us here. We have unemployment, we have lost our buying powers. Let's meet some of the community members who have the same problems as most other Brazilians.
How many people live in here?
8 people.
In this little tiny room here. En este cuarto.
Toda.
Just in this room, 8 people.
Here, 8 people. In around 20 square meters.
20 metros quadrados.
Hi, how are you? What's your name?
Maria.
So how many people living in your house here?
4 of us. No, 5 of us. 3 children, me and my husband.
Does your husband work?
No.
No.
Could you please show me how much food you have left in the house right now? Beans. That's it?
Só isso ou tem mais alguma coisa? Só.
That's it.
So things aren't getting any better for you.
As coisas não estão melhorando para a senhora?
No.
What's your name?
Sandra.
Sandra. Can you show me what's behind your house?
Então fala, Sandra. Aqui é o banheiro.
This is the toilet and everything.
Vai direto pro
Goes straight into the sewer here.
esgoto. Do carro.
Behind here.
Aqui vai direto. Oi, Geraldo.
Geraldo, I know you haven't got a job, and we don't either. That's how it is for many Brazilians.
Essa é a realidade de muitos brasileiros.
Did you ever have a life like that? Was there ever a time in your life when you were poor and you didn't have any food and you didn't know anybody who had a job?
I lived in the streets for 2 years. I didn't even have the basic necessities, and I also lived in the slums. It makes you feel very sad to see people living in such conditions. Living in misery with nothing to eat. It's very sad.
Well, now you're making me sad, Geraldo. just watching you.
Time goes by, the years go by, and nothing ever changes. Of course, we all are for bringing down inflation. Inflation had to be controlled, but not at the price of poverty and hunger and unemployment.
What is the latest information that you get from Ford about whether or not you're going to get your job back?
I've been told that there is a list of 70 people being considered for rehiring. And my name's on that list, according to the committee at the factory.
One of the things you asked me to do was to go visit the World Bank and to talk with them and to find out how they see their policies affecting Brazil, how they look at the Brazilian economy. So I have a tape that I made when I visited the World Bank. I'd like to play it for you.
Hello, Geraldo. My name is Goban Nankani, and I work with the World Bank. Geraldo, you're working in an industry which happens to be an industry that grows extremely fast when the economy is doing very well, but is also one of the industries that drops the fastest when the economy slows down. Brazil today receives $20 billion of direct foreign investment a year, 4th in the world, 2nd in the developing world to China. This is a mark of confidence by international investors, not just moving funds in and out of the country, but willing to invest in plant and equipment and machinery, employing Brazilians to produce in Brazil. So my plea to you is, difficult as it is, look at the bigger picture. Look at what Brazil is trying to create, not just for your generation, but your children's generation. It's a hard time, but really there's lots and lots of light at the end of a not too long tunnel.
He said, just hold on, Geraldo, and everything's going to be okay.
I feel very small and helpless. It's as if my hands are tied.
We've been working on this program now for almost 3 months, and for 3 months we've been trying to get Ford to talk to us, and they refuse. But they did send me this lovely fax. Ford recognizes our employees are our strength and our most valued resource. To dismiss workers is an extreme measure and only done when there are no other options available. Due to the weak economy and shrinking market in Brazil, we were compelled to look at all cost-cutting measures and to let some of our workers go to remain competitive. Ford is committed to our employees, customers, and shareholders. We have operated in Brazil for 80 years of good and bad times and remain dedicated to that market. Geraldo, this is the best I could get from Ford. Have you had any word from them about your job?
I'm supposed to receive a telegram this week about returning to work at Ford. At least that's what I was told last week. And today, 43 people went back to work.
I think that we've learned that these forces can affect anybody anywhere in the world. They can affect you, and they can affect the people watching this TV program. And one day, things can start happening in a faraway corner, and the dominoes can start falling, and you could wind up joining Geraldo on the unemployment line. So, Geraldo, the last part of this program we're saving for you when you send us news whether you get your job back. I wish you the best of luck, and we're going to be holding our breath waiting for news of you getting your job back, okay?